Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life. Hey everybody, today I've got Noah Scinta in with me. He works for Ace Virtual Shooting, which I truly believe is going to be a game changer for training for practical shooting at a high level of performance. So I want to talk to him about how the system influences training in general, how it can help people out, and also how it's helped out his training and what he sees in it. And I'll weigh in with my training as well, because it's really been a huge benefit to me. So Noah, why don't you tell everybody about yourself real quick?
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. So I'm the marketing manager here at Ace, and I do some competitive shooting on the side. It's my passion and something that I love doing. I've been at Ace for about a year and a half and using the prototype technology for about a year and a half more than that. So about 3 years total, I've been using it. I saw a video on Reddit of somebody running around in their backyard using just one of these Quest controllers, and what looked like a USPSA stage. I was instantly like, I want to try that. So bought a Quest 2, which at the time was $350. I thought, I had no experience with VR. Before that, I thought that it was, something that'd be $1,000. It wasn't. So bought it, had a lot of fun, got to know the people at work there. And there was an opportunity to create Ace with the team that we have today. So Ace is a virtual reality shooting platform that uses a physical handset here. This is Staccato P right here. That's got a real break, reset, weight, and feel. And it pairs with the Meta Quest 2 and 3, and as well as the new 3S platforms to provide a realistic shooting experience where you can basically do stuff you can do on dry fire, but push it beyond that. And just throughout my time, basically every year I ranked up. So when I started before Ace, my first super classifier, USPSA, I was C class, used the early version of Ace for about a couple months. Next one, B class, year later, A class, and I just got the M class. I attribute a lot of my success to Ace, especially because I'm a really busy person. And I do have a local range. I can go and do live fire, but I don't get to go to a lot of matches. Generally, 5 to 10 matches a year is kind of my limit with, how busy I am for work, with work and family and house projects and all that sort of thing. So really grateful that this technology is here and you can push the limits of what you can do even more than in dry fire. So to put it into perspective, how many classifiers do you typically shoot a year? I try to make it to a super classifier every year, but that didn't happen for 2 out of the 4 years I shot. So I kind of shot a super classifier, and then a year and a half later, I shot another one. But I would say, I think in total, I was counting it up, I've shot something like 30 classifiers or maybe 35, but some of those were on the same day because they let you shoot 2 different divisions at the same super classifier. Well, I mean, like per division. It's like the division you're master in. How many have you shot a year in that division? Yeah. So I think I was looking at it. I think that's 12. So I did a basically did a super classifier a year and a half ago, which was in PCC and also carry optics. And that's when I made A. So I made A in carry optics and PCC. And that was actually right before Ace came out. So I had no experience with Ace, just the prototype technology. And then the last one, I shot PCC in it because I was basically, I didn't think I was going to be able to go to that one. And my wife gave me the okay, like the night before at 9 o'clock. And I just didn't want to shoot limited optics. So I just took my PCC out there and I got like 0.1% from M. And then I shot one match a couple weeks after that had one classifier. And I think that was actually like a 92 that I did on that classifier. So to put it into perspective for the people that are watching that are like
defensive shooters or military or police, they aren't competitors. That is an amazingly low amount of classifiers to make him. Like that is not a common thing. So obviously it's helped you out there. How many live rounds a year do you think you fire?
Probably about 7,000 on average. I'd say so anywhere between 5 and 8,000. And probably a third of those end up being at matches if I shoot, let's just say 8 matches a year. So.
And once again, like and I think everybody who shoots can understand that. That's a really small round count for the amount of skill you have. So obviously it's helping out in some way. It's carrying over in some way. And I've seen the same thing myself. Like I'm at the official round count in ACE now of 525,000. And I know you said it's probably a lot more because the first few months I had it, we weren't counting the rounds.
Yeah, and you were burning it down then. So.
But I've only shot probably 25,000 rounds this year. So I'm probably on track to shoot about 30,000, which
that's a lot of rounds.
It's not by most competitive shooters standards, really.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy though.
It's less than I used to do.
Yeah.
Sure. I have to work really hard because I'm not naturally talented. So I just have to grind it out. Right.
I think you are very naturally talented. I've never seen somebody with such a love for training and dedication to the craft.
Well, that's just personality type.
Yeah, gets you results though.
So, I think is fascinating about this is that it doesn't really feel like dry fire to me. Like it's not quite live fire, but it's more than just dry fire. And we talked a little bit about this a few times in our conversations. I think you were saying you were calling it virtual fire. It was like the phrase you were using.
Yeah, because I do think it tricks your brain in ways that dry fire doesn't, with all the sounds, the explosions, the watching the dot jump up and down, getting all that real-time feedback, hitting, activating targets, moving targets, all that sort of thing. So I do think it really bridges the gap between live and dry fire. So we've been calling it kind of virtual fire. It's like a new niche there.
Yeah, no, I like that term a lot because I find, like, for myself, watching the dot track when I'm shooting makes my brain think there's recoil, even though my arms aren't feeling the physical recoil impulse. When the dot starts tracking and I start shooting fast, I tend to start gripping hard like I do in real life. Whereas it's so easy in conventional dry fire to get a very relaxed grip and cheat yourself to get those fast par times, right? And the other thing that I like about it a lot is it is so easy, and I know because I've done this to myself in my journey, right? It is so easy to damage your shooting by being, I don't want to say dishonest with yourself because it's really not that, but it's being kind of overconfident in your dry fire. Thinking, that sight picture was good enough when no, it actually wasn't, right?
Especially with small far targets. Like if you put like a 1/3 size steel popper out at 10 or 15 feet, and you're like, okay, that was good, but like, do you know that was good? And usually you're dry firing on a dead trigger too. So do you know if you had a good enough support hand grip to not pull the target, pull your sight off target? So
yeah, no, I agree completely. I think it's really an amazing training tool, and I think that anybody who's serious about their shooting owes it to themselves to check it out. I know that some people complain about the price. Why don't you talk about the subscription model and how much the controllers cost and kind of all of that so people could understand?
Yeah, so the full price right now of our handsets, which is the physical hardware right here, is $199, and then the subscription to the software is either $168 billed yearly, which comes out to $14 a month, or $19 a month billed monthly. And the only thing you need besides that is a headset. So this is a MetaQuest 3, which is kind of the top of the line right now. It's $499, and the MetaQuest 3S, which is $300. That just came out, and it's got kind of the hardware on the inside of the Quest 3 with the mixed reality mode still working. And then the lenses that your eyes see are from the Quest 2, which is older. And then that's another option that works, but you can't buy them at retail anymore. You have to buy them used. So that'd be the cheapest way. You can get them for about $100. But the biggest difference, I would say, if you're familiar with eye boxes on scopes, is the Quest 3 has a very forgiving eye box. So if you set the pupillary distance up It's not going to be picky about that. It's not going to be picky about head position. It's always going to be clear everywhere. Where the Quest 2 can be quite clear, but you have to really make sure that it's in the right spot, and then you clench it down to your head for it to be clear. And then even then, it's more the center that's clear, where the outside will start to be a little bit blurrier. So these are just it's a little bit more lenient in terms of the clarity and the resolution on the lenses.
Yeah, I'm still in the Quest 2 because I haven't upgraded yet. And we talked about this a bunch of times. I know I need to, but I like how you said you picked up a Quest 2 the other day and you felt like you had eye cancer.
Yeah. So we're always updating the game, and for a while they were pretty close, but because we optimized the performance a lot recently for both the Quest 3 and the Quest 2, then we went back and tuned some of the graphical settings to boost those up on the Quest 3 to utilize some of the extra power it has. And now that gap where it was like this before is more like this, especially if you're shooting at targets that are 20 yards and out in the game. They just are a lot more clear and easy to see. There's just more pixels to work with, basically.
I'm going to tell myself that's why you won our little match this morning.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. The scores are not crunched yet, but it could be. But also, I think you get a slight boost in frame rate too on the 3, just because it's got a little bit more power to run with.
And you did kick my butt this morning, but that's beside the point. I think that's another valuable part of this tool is the fact that you're not just dry firing by yourself. You can set up a room with multiplayer functions. You can have people come in and shoot with you. You can shoot a virtual match every week. You can have that sort of match pressure interaction with other people that you get when you go to a match without having to have a match available or without having to actually, if the weather's bad or if let's face it, there's not a match every day of the week in real life, right?
There's not, yeah. And that took us about, 15, 20 minutes versus 8 to 10 hours, like a lot of real matches take. So, that's something I've been doing. I think this is like match number 35 or something. So every week except for one out of the last 34 weeks or 35 weeks, whatever it is, I've hosted one of these matches, and I've shot everyone except for the week my newborn son was born. I took a week off, got a little lazy there, but no, it's great. And I bring that up to people online. A lot of detractors I'll hear say things like, oh, you can do everything you can do in Ace and dry fire. And I'm like, it's not really true. There's some things you have to do in dry fire, like weapons manipulations, but a lot of the stuff, especially I would say pertaining to movement, for example, where in dry fire, it's easy to cheat yourself and not know, like, did your sight dip and did you pull the trigger as your sight was dipping and you're doing that? Where the feedback you're getting while physically moving and shooting is super high there. You got reactive targets, you got moving targets. You can really know if I hit that target or not and where I hit the target. It's so easy to just, on these 1/3 size targets, I got them set up all over my office over here to how do you know if that Blake drill was, 3 Charlies or 0 Charlies when you're shooting it. So.
Yeah. And there's a level of feedback even beyond that. It's got all the split times. It's like having the feedback you get from going to the range and recording all of your splits and your transitions and everything else and recording all your hits and kind of doing that math, but it does it for you and it presents it to you.
Yeah. And you don't have to load mags, which is nice.
It's really cool how many repetitions you can get in. It's even more than regular dry fire because you still have to move targets around for regular dry fire. If you're setting up a different drill, you can do a huge variety of things just by pressing the button on the controller.
Yep. No pasting, no resetting, no moving, none of that. Yeah. And going back to what you were saying about that match pressure too, I've definitely seen. So I'll treat every match like it's a real match. I'll think my same thought, like my make ready thoughts in my mind, which for me is usually just visualizing the spots on the target as I'm going to be shooting. And when I step up and I'm ready to shoot, I just think to myself, be relaxed. This is easy. That's basically what I think. And then I think, see the sights and grip the gun and just let it go and try to get into that flow state where you're really practicing, flipping that switch between talking to people and just being thoughtless, so.
And yes, you can practice that by yourself in dry fire, but having other people in there with you gives you the same distractions you have when you're talking smack to your buddies in the match.
It does. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
So you have to reel yourself back in just like you would in an actual match. So one of the things that I think is really cool too, though, is how much the guns in the game seem to act like real firearms. So
Yeah.
what about the physics of the game? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So everybody at Ace are shooters. So we obviously wanted to put in as much attention to detail in terms of the realism. So all the guns are shooting real projectiles that are leaving the barrel at a slightly upward angle that are meeting, where the optic is zeroed. So there's real height over bore. Actually, there's even real parallax. So if you take the optic and put it on, your desk or whatever, and look at a close target, move your head around, you'll see the dot move around. The physics engine for all the steel targets and the activator sequences use real physics. They're not like a preset order of events. So where you hit a target, for example, on a popper will influence how far and how fast it'll fall. So yeah, it's definitely very dialed in terms of the physics in the game and the gun interactions, how they feel. We just did a gun customization update about 2 months ago, where we also revisited kind of the slide speed, how fast that's tracking, added in a lot of hidden variables that we're going to be able to adjust in the future so that different guns can cycle at different speeds that would equate to real life. And maybe putting a compensator on it might down the road, slow the slide speed, increase the stability after the slide is finished cycling, all of that. Right now, after that update, we basically normalized all the guns. So they essentially shoot all identically right now, but that's something in the future we're going to address and make them all look and feel more like their real life counterparts.
You talked about poppers. You mentioned that. Like one of the things that's interesting is that depending on where you hit on the popper, it falls at a different rate, just like real life. And you can drive it down just like in real life.
Yep.
Which is a really cool feature. And then like the clamshells and the swingers and all of that. And to my everlasting frustration, the Polish plate racks all move like they do in the real world.
They do.
Bars move like they do in the real world. You clear them the same way. It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. No, and a lot of stuff we've talked about here is related to competitive shooting. But our goal in the long term is not to make a competitive shooting app. We want to capture the entire shooting experience virtually. So that includes, like you said, the camaraderie of going to the range, talking to your friends, hanging out. That whole experience. I think a lot of people are into guns because they're modern martial art that we have, and you can train with them, get better with them. It's an avenue of self-improvement there. But people like to come together in these groups and communities, and it can be difficult to do that in real life with people with busy schedules and all that sort of thing, and just the expenses of ammo and the logistics of going to the range. So we're basically trying to capture all the good parts about shooting, but remove the boundaries so that it's easier for people to come together, experience a thrill of shooting, potentially get people into the sport, and just develop a love for it.
And there's people all over the world. Like the other day I was shooting with a guy who's a cop in Spain.
Yeah. So we're already in, we don't even do any international marketing, and we're already in 60 different countries. So
what, you talked about how like United's looking at the practical shooting world. And I kind of want to talk about that for a second because, I've kind of lived my life in all three lanes, right? Military, law enforcement, and competitive shooting. And I wouldn't want any of my cop or soldier viewers who are watching this to think that this isn't for them, because just like I'm a firm believer that going to matches benefits people in those professions, training this way benefits people in those professions as well, right? And having a drill that comes from USPSA or comes from IDPA or comes from Steel Challenge doesn't mean that drill doesn't have benefits for the real world shooter, right? Or for the defensive minded civilian, right?
Yes.
And you've got things in there already, like shoot, no shoot scenarios. You've got, all of that stuff in there. And then if the drill you want to shoot isn't in one of the preset drills, we've got, and this was my baby, so I'm proud of it. We've got the core drills range in the open range.
Yep.
Where you've got 3 targets set up like an L-Pres, and you can set the distance and 3 shooting boxes. So you can work your own movement drills, work your own variations on different target drills, multiple targets. I use that for a large portion of my training, not just the more action-oriented drills, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And that's something that I wanted to kind of make sure we brought up before we got done, is that if you treat this like a training environment and not like a video game, you'll reap huge benefits from it. And I think people are concerned about it being just a game. And yes, you can treat it like a video game. I'm sure there's people that have bought it. I was watching some guy in the Discord talk about how he doesn't even want to buy a gun controller. He just uses the Ace controller because he's a gamer.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's kind of defeating the purpose, but you do you, right?
Yep.
I guess
yes. I do get what you're getting at.
It's just a video game. If you treat it right, it's really not. It really is like virtual training.
Well, I think that there's two points there. So number one, to reap the benefits of training in general, you have to treat it like training. It's the same thing with dry fire. But I think the people who do treat it like training are going to also, because of the way the game is designed, also see the most success at the leaderboards. I mean, you see it, probably the best person overall is probably Tim Herron on the leaderboards. If you my money would be on if they're like, hey, somebody get the highest score on this drill. And probably Tim, if you give him, 50 runs to go do it, he'd probably set the all-time high score on there. Because he's really good at, shooting in match mode, but also going insanely fast if he needs to. And because there's a lot of repetition. So I think some people are talking about that when it's like treating it like a game, trying to go as fast as possible. But I think the benefit there is if you're able to develop the ability to switch that on and off. So it's like, I can go crazy fast and I know I'm only going to have a 50 or a 40 or a 30% success rate on this, but I might be 10% faster. Being able to instantly flip that off and be like, okay, I'm going to shoot this with 100% confidence at 95% speed. Being able to go back and forth between those is a huge skill in itself, that takes a lot of time to master. And none of these people that are treating it like a game, I mean, it's great that they want to do that, but they're not going to be the best in the world at shooting it either. They're not going to gain an unfair advantage essentially over those treating it like a tool. So.
Well, and I talk about that in my classes all the time, about how one of the most important things for a shooter is to develop like a mental transmission, where you can shift gears at will to a specific pace and success rate. And that's one of the hardest things to do. It's incredibly difficult. And just like you said, because what I do for myself is I allow myself Monday, typically, to be I'm going to go crazy and try to rack up the leaderboards day, right?
Yep.
Because that's when the leaderboards get erased. So that's how I'm motivated to do that, right? So, but I don't think it's bad allowing myself one day to do that, because just like you said, it enables me to learn to shift back and forth and brings me to new levels of speed. Because like a lot of other very famous firearms trainers have said, you can't ever be fast without going fast. And
exactly. Give your brain that time to start to process stuff at a faster speed, to see faster, to react faster. And that's where I've seen the most gains out of Ace, honestly, besides the movement stuff. The movement stuff for me was huge when I first started using the predecessor technology, because the handsets weren't there. It was on the very early version of the game. You were playing either with controller or one of those like Amazon $20 things that are not a good handset. So for me, I was looking at it, really it's the transitions and the movement, because the physical hardware wasn't there yet. And I learned, I was okay at movement for that, but I got very confident at running at full speed while not breaking the 180. You know what I mean? That's something that I know a lot of people probably, if they're in, B class and trying to get to A or M, is something that you have to, it's like a mental break. Like you have to be okay with sprinting and stopping as fast and as aggressively as you can while you're holding a loaded firearm and not breaking the 180. And that's something that's hard and potentially dangerous to practice in real life, where in VR, the RO is going to DQ you faster than any real RO will, because it can detect the moment you break it by a fraction of a degree. So that was a huge benefit there for me. And then obviously now with the handsets we have at Ace, a lot of you probably have seen these, but they've got a real break and reset. I don't know how much you'll be able to hear it, but it's about, this one's pulling at about 4 pounds, maybe slightly over, maybe slightly above. It's kind of plus or minus 0.5 pounds for our handset tolerance, but it's got a real break, real reset, take up, similar to a striker fired trigger on there. So that gives you even more, you got the index at that point. You add, mag changes where you can mimic them. So yeah, there's a lot you can do.
And we've talked about this before, but they train fighter pilots with VR. Like this is really nothing new in professional spheres where it can benefit people, right? And now it's accessible. Like I love the stages of movement for the same reasons you said. You can practice movement, based on the space you have in your house, obviously.
Yeah.
Or
basement, or backyard, or yeah, it works outside too if you have a Quest 3. So pretty well. The Quest 2 doesn't like the infrared light from the sun, though. Freaks out. The Quest 3 will. If you're in like direct full moon sunlight, that'll start to freak it out. But any other time, it's generally good to use outside. So,
what else would you want to add to people that are watching this to tell them about the system and its benefits and everything else?
Yeah, so one thing I want to touch on that I didn't before about the pricing. So the reason we're a subscription model is because we have a full in-house team of developers in the United States. We're not outsourcing anything, and we provide new content every single week. And we're really trying to build something bigger. We're not trying to just push out a product and it's done. We have big visions for what ACE is going to become. So for anybody worried about subscription fees, because that's our biggest thing, like, oh, I don't need another subscription in my life, which I totally understand. I have a million different subscriptions. The other thing is, too, we do have ACE Limited. So if you buy, let's just say you bought your Quest 2 used for $100 on Facebook Marketplace, you bought even a used handset, I've seen these go for $150, $100, whatever people are selling them for if they just bought multiples and don't need one. And let's just say you bought a monthly and then canceled. You still have access to ACE Limited, which is essentially a open range. So just like, the open range A we have in the game, and you still have a working shock timer, unlimited ammo, and a red dot and an iron sight option. So you could still get all this practice that you want to without paying more money. So it's not going to be a paperweight in your house. We need to do a better job of conveying that. But that's a big worry that people have, like, oh, I'm going to invest this and then I also have to pay extra money. But I guarantee you on that first month when you try it, you're going to want to keep using it because it's, you're not going to have access to all the drills, the multiplayer, all the other fun features that we talked about. But all that takes money to develop, to create, to continue to have it run. So
how many drills and stages and ranges are in the game now?
So we're at over 100 now total. If you take all of them, I think 110 or so now. And so we're constantly adding a couple a week. And and going back to kind of the that tactical, versus competition type of mindset, something that I personally want to add in the future is more things with dynamic decision making while you're doing it. So we're never going to have, I shouldn't say never, but probably never going to have, humanoid targets or anything like that. It's always going to be paper targets you're shooting at. And so there's no violence, no blood, no guts, no gore in the game. But I would like to add, more randomness in the game in the future. So like even in drills where, there could be a drone holding a plate, for example, that's randomly going around. And so every time you shoot the drill, it may be a little bit different, or things where there's, uprange starts and the downrange targets on the uprange start are randomized. So like it could be the same amount of targets, but they're different every time. And then you're getting into, sure, it's not, a decision-making experience where there is a guy with a bottle of whiskey and you don't know if he's going to be aggressive on a domestic call or something. It's not like that, but it's still, you're in the moment and you have to decide when you don't know what the right choice is. Like there's no necessarily right choice, but you have to try to make the best choice you can based on the targets and the priority given to you. So that Halloween stage is like that too, where you can make that decision to shoot that explosive tannerite, but if you miss your window, then you're going to be, punished for it, basically.
Well, and speaking from somebody that ran the training, both in the military and in law enforcement at the end of my career, most of the shoot, no shoot decision-making training done by the professionals who have to do that, the vast majority of it is on paper targets anyway.
Okay.
That's the overwhelming majority. Yes, you do have role players, you do force on force and all of that, but that is a rarer thing. You don't get as many reps on that as you do on just paper shoot and no shoot. And even now, like when I want to work on kind of reaction time, I love it's called whack-a-mole. It's basically like a Roger where the targets move. And I do that one pretty often just because it's a great way to, when that target pops up, you don't know where it's going to pop up at. And you have to immediately drive to it because the times get shorter and shorter.
Yep.
And
that was very difficult. Yeah. And going back to kind of even the video gamer element, right now we've got, zombies, drones, and the whack-a-mole are kind of like the main mini games, quote unquote. But we do want to add more of those in the future that are more fleshed out, similar to the whack-a-mole is, where it's fun, it's repeatable. This is very wishful thinking, but scalable in multiplayer would be really cool, where there's more targets based on how many people, because that's a problem that I see, where it's like, okay, I shot the match with people, I'm hanging out with 7 other great people that are fun to talk to, and it'd be fun if we were all shooting at something at the same time, where that's not something you really get in real life at all, unless you're at one of those Demolition Ranch events where they're just blasting rounds down range.
Well, but you guys have the head versus head shoot off.
We do, yeah. Yeah, so that's one, like, yeah.
For anybody who knows what this is, it's like the IPSC style shoot off, where you have the rays of poppers and then a central one that stops the stage. And whoever gets first wins. That one's actually really good too. That's a lot of fun in multiplayer.
It is a lot of fun, yeah, and that'd be cool to do, like some sort of live event similar to the IPSC style ones, where you're having people compete. But even then, that's 2 people. Unless, I guess you could have multiple people, like almost like teams shooting it, but something even more curated than that. Because going back, we've talked about this before, not today, but the problem with dry fire too is it's not. There's no guardrails on it. So most people don't know how to dry fire until they've had a lot of experience as a shooter and a lot of instruction on how to do it, or they've done their own research on, there's a lot of good people to learn from out there. But we're trying to develop an experience where anybody can pick it up and start to gain proficiency at a, shorten the learning curve. I think you like to say that for your training, but it's kind of the same thing here, where you're improving at a faster rate, and you're getting constant feedback on what to do without having to go out and find those answers for yourself, which is very time consuming. It's a skill in itself, like how to dry fire. So,
well, and one of the things I like, and I think this is really important, right? Because people love to go, oh, well, you just have great discipline, right? And they think that means you always enjoy doing what you're doing. You're always excited about it. And that's not what it means. It means you're just going to go do it no matter what.
Yeah.
And the great thing you guys have in there too is you have a bunch of these little tricks. I mean, it's not a trick in a negative sense, but it's a trick.
Yeah.
Tricks you play with people that are in ACE to make them want to do certain things to get better, right? Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of those. Like we talked about the calendar before, and how I had to get at least 1 month where I got every day so I could get the platinum, just because it's the way my brain works, right?
I'm going to have to do that next month. That'll be my November goal. You can hold me to it.
All right, I'll do that. And it's those little things are typically tricks people think are self-disciplined play on themselves anyway, right? Like those are the things you do. Well, if I go to the gym today, if I go to the gym every day this week, then on this weekend, I'll let myself have a bowl of ice cream. Or if I eat right, I can have a drink. Or, you know what I mean? People play these tricks themselves to foster motivation. And you guys have a lot of those built into the system already, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we're trying to use game design for good instead of for evil, because a lot of games out there can be very addictive, and we're trying to use some of those tricks, like you said, for good. So it's like that's something too that we've talked about internally, where a lot of video games out there, once you reach that light at the end of the tunnel, let's just say you're unlocking this new skin or this level or whatever it might be, it's like, okay, I got it. And then your satisfaction kind of dies right there, where because we're designing something that's fun, but also giving you real training value, you get that existential, satisfaction that it's something that you actually accomplished in your life, and you get better and better over time. And we're trying to use, like you said, those tricks to basically trick people into becoming better versions of themselves. So kind of like, Peloton does the same thing for their cycling program that they have.
Yeah, they've gamified working out.
Exactly. Yeah. Gamification is something we really focus on. But people will hear that and think, video gamification. But no, it's taking the good elements of video game and applying it to something that you want to meet, do to achieve a real goal that you have. So,
Well, what have we not touched on that you'd like people to know?
I think that's most everything. I know you said you want to do a video in the future, potentially of shooting one of these live matches and get some organic interactions there.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to talk to Tim about that tomorrow. I've got him coming on the podcast tomorrow to record an episode, and I want to set up a match between you, me, and Tim Heron.
That would be fun.
It'd be a good video, I think, for everybody too. Like, it'd be good for everybody's channel. I think it would get a lot of good information out to people, and because I've done videos on ACE, but I haven't done any that show that aspect of it yet.
Yep.
And I think people should see that.
Yeah, and it's something I know you said you've been bad about doing it, but I disagree. We're just trying to make it more of a fluid process in order to integrate kind of those multiplayer features, because just like anything, people in general take the path of least resistance. So if you don't make it easy for people to do things, this is kind of going back to game design, they're probably not going to do it or utilize those features. So if we make it easy for people to hang out and interact with other shooters, meet new communities, kind of like with the new groups feature that we just added. I know you said you wanted to set up one of those groups, but a cool thing we got there is there's like a standing multiplayer lobby. So if you make whatever group it is, and you can see how many people are in that lobby. So if you just like go into that lobby every time you do it without having to worry about joining a specific friend, then other people will be able to just easily join you and hang out with you if that's something that you want to do.
Yeah, well, I did set up a group. I've got a great group in there now. So.
Oh, cool. Well, shameless plug there. I'll have to join that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'll do a shameless plug myself. If anybody decides to get the system, they can use the code Graybeard to get another discount too, on top of the military discount you guys already offer. So very shameless. I'm bad at marketing, but I'm trying to get better.
No, it's okay.
Where can people find ACE?
So go to acexr.com. That's acexr.com. And you can learn more, buy it there. In the future, we're looking to add kind of like bundles, so like one-stop shop. So if you don't have a MetaQuest, you can kind of get everything. But it's pretty straightforward. You just need headset, handset, and subscription, and you're good to go.
And how about social media? Where are you guys at on social media? So
we're most active on Instagram, but we also are on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all that sort of thing. So Ace Virtual Shooting for all of those handles, except for X. Twitter, we're Ace VR Shooting, because Ace Virtual Shooting is too long for them. So,
all right. Well, thanks for coming on, Noah. As always, it was a great conversation. I enjoyed shooting with you this morning.
Me too.
And we'll have to do this again soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Matt. You have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.